Okay, so in this segment, we are going to rank Final Destination, the entire movie, the entire package, including the openers, including everything as a package, the deaths and all, as a whole. Now, Final Destination, I before I get into this, I do want to say that with Final Destination Bloodlines coming out, I had decided to watch all five Final Destinations again, and it had been a while because when the first Final Destination came out, I loved it. It was probably would have been in my top 10 for the year 2000. I got obsessed with it. I watched all the sequels, and I just remember when the previews hit, I was like, wow, that looks super exciting. A whole plane thriller, exciting. It was like a plane action movie meets a Scream type of premise in the air. I was like, wow, death. And Tony Todd, the Candyman, was going to be in it. So this franchise has been around. It's on its 25th year, celebrating 25th anniversary. Has been a favorite of mine. And throughout the years, I have watched the movies on and off when I could catch them. Now, what I'm going to say is sadly just a little bit disappointing. In the year 2025, watching them again, they didn't have the same excitement, the same mystery, the same ooh and ah feeling that I had when I watched them when I was young. And it might be I was in my 20s when most of these came out, early 30s, and I was into the gory and into the nonsensical and into just the excitement part of it. And all that's still present in these movies. But when I look at the franchise as a whole and when I watched them this last time, I felt like they were a little bit goofy to me. Like, I was thinking to myself, what was the interest? Why was I like so obsessed with it? And I still love the movies. I still think they're great movies overall. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is they're not aging as well as I thought they would. And some of the stories, and as we get into the sequels and all that, some of the storylines and some of the entire lore of this gets lost. But at the end of the day, it's still a classic. I guess, I remember when I was young and I would look back at, movies from the late 60s, early 70s that were 15 and 20 years old, I'd be like, well, what was the interest in them? I guess it's kind of the same feeling now that these movies some of them are 20 years old. So coming in at number 5 for all the Final Destinations, ranking in the bottom spot, is going to be the Final Destination, which is technically Final Destination 4. I don't know why they never called it 4, just like they didn't want to call Scream 5, but it's Final Destination 4, the fourth one in the franchise. And when I remember being super excited about this one when it was coming, and I thought, I hadn't been a fan of 3 after 1 and 2. So like this one was like seeming more exciting to me. I don't know why I thought that Final Destination 3 never made it to the theater and went to straight to video. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong on that, because I just think of all these 5, I don't think that one I saw in the theater. However, it's the fourth one that after all this time is still in last place.
We have to get out of here. We're all gonna die, alright? There's gonna be a crash.
Have you lost your mind?
The Final Destination, Part 4, was released in 2009 in theaters. It is starring Bobby Cambo, Chantal Van Santen, Nick Zano, Michaeli Williamson, Andrew Frisella, and of course Tony Todd. While enjoying a day at the track, Nick O'Bannon has a horrific premonition of his friends and him all dying in a freak accident involving many race cars. Mere seconds before the visions comes true, he manages to convince them to leave. Although they achieve death, then the survivors each begin to meet a grisly end, and Nick tries to figure out a way to escape a similar fate. I think one reason why I put this one towards the bottom of the list is I would say most of these characters are forgettable. I just, when I look back at the series as a whole, I couldn't remember this one as much. I mean, I remember the car crash. And I feel like I remembered the whole, it ends in a movie theater and the girl's on the escalator. Other than that, I had trouble remembering the rest of this movie. And, you know, the characters themselves, they were pretty generic. They were like CW characters. The one character I think I liked the most was probably the mechanic. And he was, you know, he was kind of this angry guy, and his girl gets killed during the opener, and then he survives. And then he's just really one of the fodder characters. Another thing I did like about this one, it had a good soundtrack. Devour from Shinedown was in the opening scene. That made it really feel like permanent to that time frame. I also like the kind of the revamped way that they did this kind of hard rock version of the theme from the original one. So this is the one where the opener starts off in a high-speed raceway track, and all our main stars are, it's a variety cast, so it's similar to Final Destination 2. So this one has a lot of similarities to 2. Number one is the cast of characters is mixed in age groups. It also is, the opener is basically a car accident, or involving cars in an accident. And this one is also very similar to the first one because the premonition and the way the whole movie ravels out is very much similar to the first one. Whereas in the second and third one, they tried to take add different lores and change it up a little bit. But this one was straight up just the original premise, just done, you know, a few years later. But at the end of the day, a lot of these deaths weren't too memorable, and the cast wasn't memorable. This one blends in with so many movies from that time frame at the tail end of the franchise. So that is why Final Destination 4 comes in last place for the ranking of all the Final Destinations. Coming in at number 4 is Final Destination 3. This one was released in 2006, and like I said earlier, I think it went straight to video. Six years after a group of high school students first cheated death, another teen, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, has a premonition that she and her friends will be involved in a horrifying roller coaster accident. When the vision proves true, the students and her fellow survivors must deal with the repercussions of cheating the Grim Reaper. This one stars Mary Elizabeth, Ryan Merriman, Amanda Crew, Crystal Lowe, Chris Lemche, Clayton Simmons, and Texas Battle. So with Final Destination 3, I feel like it came out in a time where I was kind of at a point in my life where I was kind of getting tired of the movies. I had been well into watching movies for over 10 years at that part, and I felt like the tropes, the reboots, all that stuff, the sequels, it was all becoming, you know, a lot. And this one just kind of fell in the mix as well. Kind of like 4, it became generic and blended and very non-memorable for me. So like when I thought back about Final Destination 3, the only thing I could remember was the roller coaster. Like that the opener happened on a roller coaster. As far as, so when I was rewatching it, I kind of was rewatching it almost like I had never seen it before because I barely remembered it. I think I'd only, maybe over the years, probably because this one was at the bottom of my ranking as it was, that I didn't watch this one this much. A lot of the time I would be watching the other ones on repeat. I will say though, in this last time watching it, I actually enjoyed it more than I thought I was. I thought it was gonna be a chore and I was gonna dread it, but I didn't. It actually wasn't as bad as I remembered. In fact, I ended up liking it more than the fourth one. One thing that I did like about it, did kind of twist the lore a little bit. There was this whole thing where the girl and the main guy star, they're like looking through pictures as clues to try and figure out the death's order and all that stuff. And that main character, Mary Winstead, she was serviceable for the job. I thought she overall did a good job. However, you know, when I think about the opener, when I think about the deaths, these ones are not in the top for me. I just wasn't a fan of this one as much as the other ones. I felt like the roller coaster thing was like a shrink down from what they had been doing. And it is kind of this, of when you think about gauge of like how big or how catastrophic, how much of a catastrophe each opener is, the roller coaster is on the, I guess, the smallest intensity level. But overall with this one, it also was another one where I felt like we had generic characters, CW characters, forgettable characters. I couldn't say, like, when looking back on it before watching the series again, that I would remembered anyone who starred in it, or I knew anyone, or anyone in this one or the fourth one ever made careers for themselves afterwards. They were like in those movies and that's about it. Maybe they were in other generic stuff at the time. One thing I will say though, this time I did like how Final Destination 3 ended. I liked the whole, you know, she was on a train and it was kind of a grandiose ending, almost a bigger ending than bigger opening. So I guess that was the strength for Final Destination 3. But at the end of the day, from start to finish, this one is on the tail end of the series. It's why it comes in at number 4 for Final Destination. Coming in at number 3 for the ranking of Final Destination is Final Destination Part 5, the latest one in the series until today. Final Destination was released in 2011.
You were supposed to die on that bridge. A lucky few survived the disaster. And then one by one, death comes for them all.
Are you saying that we can't stop this?
There's an answer for everything.
It's kill or be killed.
Nobody's safe!
During a bus ride with his colleagues to a corporate retreat, Sam experiences a horrifying vision. The suspension bridge that they and many others are crossing starts to crumble around them. When his vision ends and almost immediately starts to come true, Sam quick takes action that saves a number of people, including his girlfriend Molly and his best friend Peter. However, the survivors soon find that death will not be denied. This one stars Jocelyn McLeaney, Miles Fisher, Emma Bell, Nicholas D'Agosto, David Koechner, Arlene Escapada, and Shaylon Simmons. So it's kind of funny that this one lands right in the middle of the ranking, Final Destination 5. In 2011, I probably would have put it at number 1. When it first came out, I loved it. It was my favorite one out the gate at that point in time. But over time, like I said, some of these ones, my feelings have changed on them. And this one's definitely one where I am torn over it. And it's kind of ironic why this one's directly in the middle, because there's parts of it that I was like, wow, why? How did I not know that this went in this direction? And why isn't this one the worst one? And then there's still other things that pull me towards, oh, I love this one, I love this part. And there were so many great things to it that wanted to pull it more towards back of the front. The top of the ranking. But it's going to sit right here in the middle. Why? Because it's definitely a mixed bag. This one has a stronger opener, an intense opener. They obviously had their budget, by the time this one, I mean, all the Final Destinations probably had a decent budget, especially for what they pulled off in all of them. But this one especially was really grandiose on the whole bridge. But, what makes me about this is they changed the lore. And I don't know, I guess I knew this then, so they changed the lore in this one. And they changed the lore in 2, but this time it was like, it reminded me of Smile. I just thought, wait a second, did Smile take their little premise from Final Destination 5? Because in Smile, to break the curse, you can kill someone and they take your place. Well, that was the same premise here. And I'd been forgetting so many things about this series and about this franchise. And I never even picked up on that when I watched Smile. But that's exactly what happens in this one, where you can kill someone to get out of death's path. And I thought, that was that seemed to work for the Smile movie. And I'm glad that they maybe stole that from here. But I don't feel like that premise worked for this one, for Final Destination. You're trying to escape death. You've already cheated death once. Now you're like stealing death by killing someone. And that's kind of how the whole end plays out, where the end of this one is a lot different. It seems like one of those thriller movies where people are chasing each other around and trying to kill each other and not escape just death itself. Now they're escaping each other. And looking back on it, that's not Final Destination. Final Destination is escaping that Grim Reaper, that grim death, that curtain rod falling, that water seeping. They didn't have any of that in the tail end of this one. However, because of the strong opener, because of the kills, there's decent kills in this one, and I like this movie. It's a step up for as far as quality. Like, it doesn't seem like the CW version of anything, or just the total generic version of it, or like the dollar store version of the first ones. I did like the main characters overall. I felt they were easy to stick with and easy to watch, and you wanted them to make it to the end. Now, that one character, his best friend, so the main guy saves his best friend, played by Miles, and Miles, I don't know if any of you ever noticed this, but he literally looks like Tom Cruise. And I thought, wow, is this guy related to Tom Cruise? And how come someone who looks so much like Tom Cruise wasn't able to be in I've never heard of that guy in anything else. But when you go back and watch Final Destination 5, check out Miles. He's a Cruise. I also like that they used the song Dust in the Wind. So sometimes some of these movies play it well by bringing songs in, like John Denver song, AC/DC song, and this one they brought Dust in the Wind from Kansas, and I thought that was a good choice. It fit the theme of this one. I liked it because it was a throwback. So at the end of the day, this one still leaves me torn, and it kind of reminds me of the sixth one coming out. Is the sixth one going to be leaving me the same way? Am I having too many expectations on it, or is it going to mop the floor up with all of them and outshine them? Who knows? They've had enough time. They've definitely had enough time to come up with something. And something good. So, coming in at number 2, and I actually was torn. I was almost consider flip-flopping these around. I really, they have flip-flopped in my mind throughout the years of which one really is my favorite. But at the end of the day, as we're walking into the sixth one, Final Destination 2 is coming in at number 2 in the ranking.
Kimberly, you sure you've got
This movie was released in 2003.
Yeah, it's Daytona, not Somalia.
A candlelight vigil to mark the one-year anniversary of the crash of Flight 180 will be held at 8 p.m. tonight at the Mount Abraham High School Auditorium.
Hey, Kimberly, it's Dad. Listen, your car's leaking transmission fluid, so I want you to get it checked right away.
Stars Ali Lauder, Tony Todd, AJ Cook, Michael Landis, Keegan Connor, Noel Fisher, David Pactu, and Jonathan Cherry. So with Final Destination 2, to me it definitely is it's definitely in the better ones of all these Final Destinations. And I was considering putting it in number 1. But why did I keep it back in number 2? Well, there are a few things. Again, with the rewatchability on this one, as far as rewatching the entire movie, this one has a great strong start, and as it plays out all the way through to the end, it just gets slowly weaker and weaker and weaker. And after watching it this most recent time, there definitely is like some plot holes, some little weirdo things, and some things I just never picked up on throughout the years that I started picking up on now in this age bracket that I am now. And, you know, it just weakened it. You know, first of all, the fact that Devon Sawa wasn't in this one and they had Ali Lauder in it, and I don't know what the reasons were, but like to me that weakens it. I just wish he had an opportunity to be in this one. And then sometimes I think, well, you know, they killed him off screen. Could they bring him back? And then I think maybe they can't bring him back because maybe Devon Sawa parted Final Destination on bad terms. I don't know. But all I know is that with 2, the way they ended him off screen and the way that they killed Ali Lauder. I mean, she already survived one. Maybe she could have survived. Maybe she could have been the Neve Campbell of the Final Destination series, because with all these movies, it never has that character that keeps making it, that keeps surviving. And I think that's why the franchise as a whole begins to weaken, because it ends up, you have to be reintroduced to new characters, a whole new group, a whole new thing, and then trying to connect them back to anything else, sometimes it's a little flimsy. Now with this one, we did have a legacy character, if you want to call her a legacy character. It was only a 3-year difference. The way she died too, and she didn't have a brutal death. I mean, I would have thought if they were going to kill her off, give her something vicious. You know, she just burns up. However, with Final Destination 2, I feel like Final Destination 2 is iconic. It's more memorable. People talk about this one, and I always think back to the first time on social media, and it was years later, when I'm scrolling on my phone and up comes a picture of a car, a line of cars sitting in a right lane, and a log truck sitting in the left lane, and a whole gap of cars just not behind the log truck. And the little meme says, an entire generation of people that were scared by log trucks. Yes, they must have all seen Final Destination 2. And boy, did I just die laughing. I just thought that was so funny because honestly, over the years, I don't like seeing log trucks on the road. I mean, I know what the heck, nothing's going to happen with them, but like, I just don't like being behind log trucks, car carriers, just anything. And I always think of the Final Destination opener. So, I mean, that opener gave log trucks a whole new meaning. And I just literally shared to my own Facebook this little TikTok video of a log truck driving on the highway, and someone had Final Destination Bloodlines poster on it. I thought that was comical. This one's a mixed bag as well, but you know, I mean, it's classic. I love it, the nostalgia of it. I mean, the opener is great. The car crash, the premonition, and the kills in this one, I think also most of them overall are more memorable. Now this one, like I said about number 5, like there was a clear difference between, or number 4, like this cast of people, the crew in this one was a mixed bag of characters. And I actually like that because it gives you're not just relating to a bunch of teenagers. There's older people in this one that are mixed in it. There's a young kid with the mom, and then there's another guy that's kind of older. And yes, it brings some cynicism to these characters, But these characters, to me, of the whole batch of all the characters, when you group them as batch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I feel like batch 2, Final Destination 2's character as a whole, is the best batch of characters. The most developed with traits, the most developed with cool little neat things about them and character. And actually, you know, probably the most developed characters that you have in the whole series until we'll see what happens with Bloodlines. And I think I remember these characters. Already in my channel, I've mentioned some of these characters and comparing them to other movies. You know, I always liked Rory, the drug guy. You know, the guy that's always doing weed in his car or whatever he was doing. He was a comic relief to that movie. You know, I like the mom and the kid. I did really like the police officer in Final Destination 2, the one that kind of gets chummy with the main girl, AJ Cook. At the end of the day, Final Destination 2 is definitely one of my favorites. It's one of my favorites of all time. It still is. It's definitely up there. If I was doing a rank of the top 10 of 2003, it would definitely be in the top 4 or 5. Maybe even the top 1. I'd have to go back through the year and think about it, but it's a winner, and that's why it comes in at number 2, ranked for Final Destination. And coming in the top spot, you know it, the original Final Destination 2000, celebrating its 25th year anniversary, having another follow-up sequel coming out today.
This feeling. It's a weird feeling.
The cabin starts to shake, right? And the left side blows up, and then the whole plane just explodes. The plane's gonna explode! It's not a joke! It's not a joke!
We get thrown off the plane all because Brownie has a bad dream?
I saw it.
The plane! It's gonna blow up! It's gonna blow up!
Final Destination stars Devon Sawa, Ollie Lauder, Tony Todd, Kerr Smith, Sean William Scott, Kirsten Cloak, and Amanda Detmer. Okay, with Final Destination, the original, I can just tell you, I remember this one. I remember seeing the trailer the first time, being super psyched about it. I remember going to see this movie, and I even remember the movie that I saw it with, which was another super hit from that year, and that was Frequency, starring Dennis Quaid and Jim Caviezel. However, and I always kind of grouped those movies together over the years. I always tended to watch them together. I bought them together because they came out on video around the same time, and then they sat on my shelf for the longest time together, and I just, because I'd watched them together as like a double feature, I always seemed to watch them as a double feature, and I love both of them. So, I mean, even though this is a Final Destination franchise review and ranking, check out Frequency. It's another good classic one. So this movie definitely came out at the right time, because had it come out any later, it might have been canceled. And I'll tell you why. And the reason why is this was released in the year 2000. Had it been delayed anymore, it might have been trying to be released post 9/11 in 2001. And it might have seen the cutting room floor after that, because obviously this movie is centered around plane tragedy. And after those plane tragedies in 2011, I think partly is why Final Destination was put on hold, and the sequels. And I think there was a sequel involving buildings, and they had to switch that around. I know there was something to do with Spider-Man, where Spider-Man had to redo their whole storyline because it was involving towers. But needless to say, I'm getting off point twice now, so let's get back to the original Final Destination. This one, I mean, was amazing. The premise is just, it was so original and fresh at the time. There was nothing that was exactly like that. This was a new concept. You know, even though it kind of gave that slasher vibe, it also gave that action vibe as well, because the action in the movie was very much like an action, very grandiose, like the plane crash, the car crashes, a lot of big set pieces that went into these movies. And I think, but the kills, even though there's no killer, it was kind of like a killer movie. It was kind of like the way it played out was like, one by one they get picked off. So it was that blend of like Halloween meets like Die Hard. It just blends those things in a way where you don't even see it's a blend. So overall, I do like this one. Of all of them, I feel like it holds up better than the rest. However, there are some plot points with it. There's just some little suspension of disbelief, and I think for what the movie is, it's fine. There's no point in hanging on to some of these small things that don't always add up. But this one, the kills are great. The characters are fun. They're funny. There was a little bit of blend of comedy in here. So this kind of was like a horror action comedy in a way. Also, the mystery, the intrigue, and the first time, the first movie, the first time going through this whole premise, it's neat. It's very intriguing. Like, where's it going to go? How are they going to finish it out? What's death going to really do with all these people? Is anyone going to survive? And I feel like the characters overall are memorable. I remember them. And there's more bigger names, people who had bigger careers. Like I think of Seann William Scott, Tony Todd, obviously. Even Devon Sawa's back. I mean, he was just in Hard Eyes. Ali Lauder had movies after this, and she's the only one that survives to the sequel. I like this batch of kids overall. Even though the one Kurt Smith's character kind of always rubbed me wrong, and I guess he was supposed to kind of be that way, but he irked me. All right, so and the police in this movie, Daniel Roebuck, which he was just in Terrifier 3, he was one of the police, and I was like, he's from Final Destination. He's been in a lot of things. I mean, he's not known for Final Destination, but he's one of the cops. The whole cop thing in here, they're investigating everything, and it made sense, of course they're going to figure out, why, how did this kid have a premonition, get all these people off the plane, say the plane's going to blow up, and then it blows up. It's like things that cops are going to definitely stick their nose around, and their presence in this film, they did okay. I like them. I guess the weaker characters for me in this one was, I felt like Devon Sawa's parents. They were bland and just side characters. They really had nothing much to do or be involved. And I thought maybe there could have been more to develop his character or develop this whole storyline where he's kind of with especially his dad. He kind of gets with his dad a little bit, but there just seemed like they were generic side characters and didn't really thrust the plot forward. They almost didn't really need to be there, except for, the kid's 16, 17, obviously has parents that he lives with, so they're going to be there. So over time, this franchise, I would say, has gotten a little bit weaker. If you notice, I had just done a whole series of influential movies that had, overall time. And to be honest, Final Destination, even though it's a fairly big franchise and has one coming out right now, I didn't think to put it in that one. And I don't feel like Final Destination was influential like that. It has its iconic moments. It has definitely it has some definitely memorable things, but you don't see the copycats in the way you have in some of these other movies. Though it did have some copycats, just recently I was talking about The Monkey and how The Monkey seemed to be like a Final Destination style movie. But at the end of the day, this is why Final Destination, the first one, ends up being at the top of the ranking. It always will be a special movie to me. I'll always love it. I'll always keep it. And I'm sure even after this year and after this whole Final Destinations, step back into them fades off. And depending on how well Final Destinations Bloodlines do, maybe this series will pick back up again and maybe we'll see a 7 and an 8. I mean, I wouldn't hate that if it's done right. I feel like maybe if this one's executed right, and if they kind of look back at the old ones and kind of take out the outdated stuff and the stuff that didn't fare well over time and make it a little bit new and fresh, maybe Final Destination will keep marching on as we go into the future. Who knows? Thanks again for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed my Final Destination ranking. It's still one of my favorite franchises. Please give a like, a subscribe, tap that notification bell, all that jazz. I still have the other segments of this Final Destination series to do, with the top funny deaths, the top brutal deaths, and of course the opener ranking.